Alright, the Game Dad here, doing my first overview and deck build for the Munchkin collectible card game. I haven't seen too many of these videos out yet, so I wanted to not necessarily be a first, but definitely see what I could do to help this new card game out. I've gone and constructed an Orc Bard deck using primarily Orc Bard cards. Actually, I think they're all Orc Bard cards, but I'm going to go through them and just kind of the strategy behind why I put what cards in and why I put the certain quantities in and how it gains a competitive edge over other decks. This one's going to be a little bit longer, so if you're interested in it, I'm also going to make more videos of these. If I get likes, if I get comments saying do another deck, or we need more information about other classes, I'll be more than happy to construct some more decks and see how it goes, because I've purchased a lot of this from my local friendly gaming store, the one here in New Braunfels called Blitzkrieg Games and Comics. If you haven't been there and you're in the area, San Antonio, Austin, Texas area, it's not too far down the road, and it's a really great locally owned shop. So the Orc Bard itself has a pretty neat ability that lets you once per turn take a card that was face down and not revealed and put it right back to your hand. So someone calls your bluff, or you weren't bluffing and they thought you were, you can just replay it again. It's a pretty strong ability, but this deck actually circles around a different theme, but because of the limited amount of actual monsters I put in the deck, this ability is very, very useful. So I'm going to break this down by card type. So bear with me here, we're going to go over them. Starting with our allies, I've only used one ally for this deck. There are multiple allies for the Bard, but I feel like this one really just is the most useful for the way that this deck goes. You're not outputting a whole bunch of damage with your monsters on their base. You're mostly using them for their abilities. So this kind of helps if you need to put a final nail in someone's coffin. You get to add extra damage once the damage goes through. So you'll see that that's the theme with anything that has to deal with monster damage. It's just a one-time quick use to try and boost your ability to do that. So that's why those are there. Those are the only allies in the deck. Since 3 is the maximum number of any card with the same name you can have in the deck, I did put 3 in there so I'd have a higher chance of drawing them. Next is the locations. You can only have one location out at a time, and I just used the danger zone here. Again, it's strictly Bard cards, but looking through all of the neutral cards, I really didn't see anything that did better for what this deck is trying to do. This card lets you, or any hero, take an extra gold when you play a mischief card of 2 or higher, and you're going to see that the deck is predominantly mischief cards. So having these out is definitely going to help you keep playing cards and keep getting in damage and doing the things that you want to do, and preventing your opponent from doing the things they want to do, and I'll show you that here in a moment. So going through the loot, I've got one of the cool shades, and honestly, I only own one of these cards. I've opened up 2 boxes and all 3 of the pre-constructed decks, so I've opened a grand total of 51 packs, and out of those 51 packs, I pulled one of these. It is the V rarity. If you look here, trying to get that means that they're just very rare is what the rarity is. If you aren't familiar with the rarity system, there's common, uncommon, rare. The X cards are usually an alternative art, but you'll see here it's also a rarer card. Then there's very rare and W, which means we destroyed most of these. Out of the 2 boxes I opened, I got 1 W card. So, anywho, Cool Shades lets you zap your hero, and you can put a mischief card from your discard back into your hand. That's a pretty good trick. Basically gives your bard a second ability. Pretty darn good. The other loot cards, it's just a 3 of. Very simply, very easily. You're playing lots of mischief cards in this deck, so it makes sense to use something that bonuses off of that. Every time I play a mischief card, I get to put a token on this, and I can tap it, or I'm sorry, zap it. I can zap it and move 2 tokens off of it and deal direct damage. It's pretty darn good. Also helps out in a pinch when you're trying to defend against monsters, and you get it by the end of your 3rd turn, so, or the ability to play it down by the end of your 3rd turn, so that's pretty darn useful. And of course, having multiples out will help you dish out that damage a little bit more. Monsters for the deck. So the earworm, we put 3 of these in. Okay. Silly rules are silly, but it will probably work more often than not because your opponent's going to want to draw cards. Drawing cards in any collectible card game or trading card game is a good thing. So, and if all else fails, they'll have to mill a card, and you're still outputting damage. So that's why this one's a 3 of. 2 resources to produce 2 damage is pretty darn good, no matter what economy you're in. So, the groupies here seem bad, right? Pay 1 gold, do 2 damage, and they get to draw a card. But you'll see one of the underlying themes of this deck is actually getting your opponent to draw more cards. Not necessarily just for the milling purposes of them running out of cards in their deck, but using certain mischief cards will actually let you have them deal damage to themselves whenever they do that. And then the last monsters in the deck, 2 of the one-hit wonders. I honestly probably would replace this with the 3rd one if I had it, but this isn't bad late game too, which is why there's only 1 of. I have multiples of these, but it's really a 1 of late game kind of thing. The one-hit wonder, 3 gold, 5 damage, solid. And then the Shrieking Fans, it increases in damage based on the number of face-down cards in your stash. So once your opponent sees what's mostly in your deck, sees these monsters coming out, you're going to have a lot more face-down cards in your stash, so that will definitely increase the value there. I'm sure that they'd rather limp away and take 2 damage instead of the 5 damage from this guy. So, and then next is the mischief cards. There's quite a few of these to go over, so we're going to start. If you notice, I've had these in alphabetical order for this, but 99 bottles, draw a card, discard a card, and then instead of this ever getting discarded, it goes right to your stash. So you will never run out of the ability to loot. I think that's a Magic the Gathering term, but basically you get to draw a card and then get rid of another card. So you get to thin your deck out, get to the cards that you need so you can get your enemy taken care of quickly. The Elvish Impersonator, dealing direct damage is always good, especially when there's a monster that's going to be causing you trouble. But the cool thing is you can try and cheat with this thing, and even when you do, it counts as a monster, so there's some extra damage output with this guy as well. The main engine behind this, again, getting your opponent to draw cards. Here's the reason why. Right here, the final countdown. Put that on a hero, and they get dealt 1 damage each time they draw a card. Well, you curse them. They're getting 3 damage dealt to them each time they draw a card. And then your groupies help them draw cards. And 1 more in here is going to help them draw cards, but they're also drawing a card at the beginning of their turn no matter what. They don't get to skip that step. being able to zap or unzap target looter ally, that works for you, that works for your opponent's cards. So the great thing about that is you get your stuff to be used again, or you make it impossible for your opponent to defend themselves against your monsters. And again, 2 more of those, sorry. So there's a total of 3 of those in the deck. Only 2 of these. I may have put a 3rd one in if I had a 3rd one, but honestly, I think this is just okay where it's at. Drawing 2 cards, and then having that encore effect again, where it just keeps coming back. I really prefer the draw a card, discard a card on the 99 bottles versus the I want it all, but this might actually end up becoming a 1 of the more I playtest this deck and see, but for right now, I think 2 is a good number for it. Jam Session. This one is another one of the cards that works well with the final countdown. You get to stick it to one of your opponent's weapons, and then whenever they use a weapon, so whenever they're defending themselves against your monster, or better yet, when the Irresistible Disco makes them do that, then they get to take some damage from you. So those Irresistible Disco cards almost become damage outputting cards because you stick these Jam Sessions on those weapons, and then you can zap them for them. So there's a lot of mischief, hate in this deck. So in order to stop your opponents from stopping you, you carry 3 of these bad boys. They try to deal damage to you. They try to take away one of the curses. You just say no. So there's that. And then the last one here, I ended up running just 2 of these, but you can stick this on a hero, and they take a damage whenever their hero card becomes zapped. Using the hero abilities is really good in a mirror match, especially because once people start using things like the cool shades, using things that give your hero multiple abilities, you're going to be seeing them need some kind of counter to that. So that was my rendition of a semi-competitive Orc Bard deck from the new Munchkin collectible card game. I'm fairly certain that when the next set comes out, of course, this stuff will change, but that's my take on it. I'm the Game Dad, and please make sure you like, subscribe, comment. I'd love to hear from you guys on which deck you want to see done next, or if you want me to do an opening, I'd be more than happy to do an unboxing or a pack opening as soon as I buy a tripod. I'm sorry for the shaky video because I'm still kind of new at this, but sometime this week I'm planning on buying a tripod, so no more shaky videos after this week. In the meantime, have fun playing games, guys.